So first up, we are to our first presenter for today, someone that many of you know here in the Rio Grande Basin and here in the San Luis Valley. And he's a gentleman that tries, I think, his best to work for those productive and viable outcomes while representing the people of Colorado. And so Mr. Craig Cotten, who's our division engineer here in Division 3 with the Colorado Division of Water Resources. And Craig manages the surface and groundwater. And we know from recent history with some of the groundwater rules and sub-districts that have been implemented that it's been probably a challenge. It's been, maybe to say the least, Craig, it's probably a significant challenge in working through that administration. Craig has been admitted as an expert into several Division Water 3 case trials and hearings. And so he definitely brings his expertise today. He's worked in this office for a significant amount of time and has worked with the Division of Water Resources for over 28 years. I think it's over, maybe just right at 28. So Craig and his family have decided to settle here in the San Luis Valley, be here in the San Luis Valley, to where we're very grateful for his expertise that he's able to grant us here in the San Luis Valley. So he lives near Monte Vista with his wife, Cindy. So welcome, Craig. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm going to turn the program over to you. And so we appreciate an update on the Rio Grande Basin.
Thank you, Armando. I appreciate that. And I just want to echo what Armando said and Rio before, that I'm really excited about the number of people that have been able to join us this morning and listen and get a good perspective on what we're doing with water here in the San Luis Valley, some of our concerns, and maybe some of the upcoming things that we're really not sure about. Not sure about if it's a good thing or a bad thing, and we need some more information. And so we've got a good group of panelists that are going to join us later on. Dan Gibbs, always entertaining and give us a good background and information about what the state is doing. But first of all, I want to just start off and just kind of give us a little bit of background about what's going on here in the San Luis Valley with water specifically, and just to kind of start this program off. And so I'm going to try to share my screen here. See if we can do this. All right, hopefully we're sharing the screen here. So I want to just focus on the two main aspects of water here in the San Luis Valley, and that's surface water and groundwater, and both very important in their own unique ways. But something else to realize too is that they're interconnected. So the impact from surface water has an impact on the groundwater, and groundwater has an impact on the surface water. So I think it's really critical that we understand both of those situations. So I want to just start out with the Rio Grande River, and this is a graph of the Rio Grande near Del Norte, and kind of busy, but this is from 1890 all the way up to the present time, and what our stream flows have been each and every year. And so you can see that they vary dramatically. Our lowest was 2002, and our highest was back in the early 1900s. That dotted line in the middle is our average. So right now, our long-term running average, our average right now is about 640,000 acre feet. And what I really want to focus on is about the last 20 years, this time period, because I think that's really a critical thing to look at and kind of focus on to determine where we are right now with our surface water resources. And so it's with all this these lines and everything, it's kind of busy and kind of a little bit hard to determine what's going on and what has gone on over the last 20 years. But if you put a line here about 750,000 acre feet, just an arbitrary line, just to see what we're doing, then you can really tell that previous to, say, 2002, we had a fair amount of years that were above that 750,000 acre foot line. In fact, at least 2 years out of every decade we had above that, and some decades 5, 6, 7 years of above that 750,000 acre foot line. except for the last 20 years. We have had 2 years in the last 20 or so that have been above that line, but only about 1 per decade. So definitely a decrease in the amount of stream flow that we've had coming through our system, entering into the San Luis Valley and being able to be used for the various uses, farming, ranching, and the environment. So definitely a critical concern. Now, skipping to this year, we actually are the highest basin in the state. As of right now, we're at 105% of average, and that's unfortunately the highest in the state. We do have a couple of other basins along the Front Range that did get a lot of snow from this latest snowstorm and are above or at or above 100%. The western part of the state isn't faring so well. Most of those are lower than 90%, especially down in the southwest corner. The Gunnison and the San Juan basins are just in the 80%, so definitely struggling. So we're looking fairly good at 105%, but I want to caution you that maybe that might not be all that it seems. So this is a graph that some of you have been familiar with, and this is our snow water equivalent graph here for the Rio Grande Basin. The yellow and the purplish line there is the average. Last year is the green line, and then this year is that that black line there. So you can actually see that we are above average, and we're closing in on that point where we're going to be at 100% for the entire season as far as our snowpack and our snow water equivalent. But also I want to point out that we are real close to where we were last year. The black line and the green line are about the same point as far as height there, as far as the inches of water, and so we're going to be pretty close to last year as far as that goes. But last year, even though we got close to 100% on our snowpack, was not a good year, and there were a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons was because we got good snowpack, but we had a lot of wind last spring, and it blew a lot of that snow away, and we actually didn't get the benefit of that water in the snow. And then the other big reason was that our soil conditions were so dry last year that a lot of that water that was in the snow never made it to the streams. It just went into the ground. And unfortunately, we're in about that same position this year too. The soil conditions, the soil moisture is very low this year, and there's a big concern that most of that water in the snow, even this year, will go into the ground. And that's represented here by the Nrcs Streamflow forecast. This came out earlier this month, and the Nrcs does a forecast of what they think the streamflow will be in various parts of the Rio Grande Basin. And the box that I have highlighted here in red is the percent of average. And so you can just go down that and see that the NRCS anyway isn't calling for anywhere near 100% of average on our stream flows this year. In fact, the upper part of that is the San Juans, rivers coming off the San Juans, and most of those are in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So nothing is above in the 80s, 80 percentiles there. So, and then that bottom group is the Sangre de Cristo gauging stations, and you can actually see that there are a couple in the 90s. In fact, the Costilla Reservoir and the Costilla Creek, the last two, are 96 and 92% respectively. Unfortunately, both of those stations are actually in New Mexico. The Costilla Creek does flow into Colorado, so we will get a benefit of that for some of our farmers and ranchers down in the southern part of the San Luis Valley. But overall, it's just not looking great. So we still do have some time to get some snow, and we're really hopeful that we can get that. But here's some another little piece of bad news. Here's the temperature forecast from the National Weather Service, and this is from March through May. of this year. And you can see that southern Colorado is projected to be very hot, much above average as far as our temperature. And then skipping to the precipitation, below average in our precipitation March through May. And then if we even look farther out, this is the April through June precipitation outlook, and that below average bullseye does go and cover the entire state of Colorado at that point in time. So these are just projections, so we're hopeful that they are not true, and we do get good precipitation at least, and lower temperatures. But just there is definitely a concern about that going forward. So now I want to just skip towards the groundwater rules in the Rio Grande Basin. And as a lot of you know, this is a big topic of conversation, a big thing that we've been working on for years now, for the last nearly 20 years, to develop those groundwater rules, and even before that on some other rules that we've tried to get into place here in the Rio Grande Basin. But we do actually have groundwater rules here in the San Luis Valley in Division 3, and they actually went into effect just a few days ago on Monday, March 15th. So brand new rules, and we're spending a lot of time getting those rules up and running, getting everybody, making sure that they are in compliance with those rules, and talking to people honestly about if they're not in compliance with those rules, and what they need to do to be in compliance. Those groundwater rules do apply to most Division 3 non-exempt wells, and non-exempt wells are most wells except for small domestic wells, small house wells, livestock wells, small wells using for a bathroom in a commercial facility, for instance, and then fire wells. So most everything else is considered to be non-exempt from the rules, and so they are subject to those rules. The biggest group of wells that we have here in the San Luis Valley that are going to be under those rules are the irrigation wells. And really those groundwater rules are fairly specific as far as what is required from well owners. They have two things that they have to meet. They have to replace the injurious depletions that their wells are causing to surface streams and surface ditches, and they have to sustain the aquifers. Pretty simple in concept, lots more difficult to get and all of the details. And then I'm going to talk just a minute here about subdistricts as well. Subdistricts are the main mechanism that most of the well owners are going to use to come into compliance with those rules. So this is just a graphical representation of the San Luis Valley, and within that red line you can see the purplish boxes there, and those represent each of the subdistricts and the response areas that we have in the San Luis Valley. We actually have 7 subdistricts that are up and running right now, and that have been formed, and those subdistricts are basically groups of well owners. They're you can kind of look at them like a fire protection district or an ambulance district or something like that. They're a entity that can collect fees on the tax rolls every year, and that's actually how they get their money to meet those groundwater rules goals. So they'll collect money from the well owners that are a member of that subdistrict, and then use that to, for instance, purchase ditch water to leave in the stream system, pay people that might be being injured by the well pumping, and to fallow land so that the aquifers can be sustainable. So very important part of the groundwater rules, these subdistricts, and here's just an idea of where those lie. Now, one of the things, so I mentioned that there are 7 subdistricts. Unfortunately, only 6 of the subdistricts had their annual replacement plans approved. So annual replacement plans are the plans that each subdistrict has to come up with each year to show that they are able to meet those goals of the groundwater rules, that they have money or water available to replace the injurious depletions to the streams, and that they can sustain the aquifers. So unfortunately, we did end up with one sub-district that their ARP was denied, and that was just about a week ago that annual replacement was denied for the Saguache sub-district. The reason is that the Saguache sub-district did not have sufficient water or mechanisms to replace the depletions that were occurring on Saguache Creek. And so the wells that in that Saguache sub-district are currently not able to pump, and they won't be able to pump until the sub-district actually gets some water or other mechanisms to replace those depletions, puts those into effect, and then applies for approval of that annual replacement plan again. And that can happen at any point in time, just as soon as they get that into motion and get that set. A little bit up in the air when we're not sure exactly when that's the next ARP is going to be applied for, hopefully fairly soon, but I know the Saguache sub-district is working hard on that. Finally, I just wanted to point out that the sustainability metric that's part of the groundwater rules, and in certain parts of the San Luis Valley, sustainability isn't going to be as much of a big deal as other parts. And so some parts are already at that sustainable level as far as their groundwater sources, and they just need to keep it sustainable. Other areas, like this is sub-district number 1 in the central part of the San Luis Valley, they're struggling with their sustainability of their aquifer. And you can see here, this is a graph of the aquifer levels from 1976 to January of 2032, it actually goes to, and just showing that after about 2002, we really dropped in that aquifer. And sub-district number 1 has been trying to build that aquifer up for the last 9 years or so. And that's the blue line there. The kind of the jagged blue line is the actual aquifer levels, and then the yellow line is the 5-year average of that blue line. Now, sub-district number 1 has to get that yellow line into the box with the red lines at -400 to -200,000 acre feet by 2032. And in order to do that, they have to raise those both the blue line and the yellow line very significantly. It's a steep hill that they've got to climb over the next 11 years. And there's some concern that without something major happening, they may not be able to reach that. So that's definitely a concern for the sub-district, and it's a concern for myself and for the state engineer, I know. And we're trying to get that sub-district going and so that they can reach their sustainability goals. So that's just really a background of what we've got going on with surface water and groundwater here in the San Luis Valley. Armando, I don't know if we have any time for any questions. You don't, here's the phone number for the Division of Water Resources. If anybody ever has any questions, please just call us and we'd be happy to answer those.